Toronto City Hall. We're talking with the newly appointed Music Development Sector Officer, Michael Tanner. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Reg. It's Mike Tanner, and I am the Music Sector Development Officer. It's a tricky title. I have to practice saying it myself.
You're also the former Director of Operations for the North by Northeast Festival. I mean, that happens for 10 days. Something they were saying about 375,000 people come to it. It generates about $50 million for the economy here in Toronto. You want to share a little bit about that? Because I know you were involved for 7 years. A little bit about the festival and you know how you feel that it benefited the local venues and talent throughout Canada.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, you know more about my background than I remember myself, I think. So I was with North by Northeast for 7 years, from 2007 until just a couple of months ago. And yeah, it's a fantastic event in a city full of fantastic events. It's in its 22nd year now, North by Northeast, and was originally started as a Toronto version of South by Southwest in Austin, and it operates on the same template in that it's got activations in somewhere between 25 and 50 venues each year for those 10 days.
That's film, music, and comedy.
Film, music, comedy, and recently they've expanded into visual art as well. And there's a digital interactive media conference where you've got people exchanging all kinds of ideas about how creativity and technology intersect. It's very exciting stuff. Your question about how it benefits local venues and local artists, well, that's an easy one. Each year, North by Northeast books about a minimum of 500 acts. It's been up as high as almost 1,000 in around, as I say, somewhere between 25, 35, 45 venues, and a lot of those artists are local artists. A lot of them are at an emerging stage in their career, which means they don't yet have a big record deal or a lot of tour support. So North by Northeast is an opportunity for them to reach a wider audience and play in front of industry and really advance their careers in a lot of meaningful ways.
With the Austin South by Southwest, I was reading up and they said something like 57,000 hotel rooms are booked during that festival. What is the number here in Toronto when the North by Northeast goes?
Oh, it's a little less than that. Austin is a pretty unique animal. It's been going for maybe 10 years longer than North by Northeast, so it goes back into the early 80s, I believe. And Austin is a city about the size of Calgary, Ottawa. And for the time that South by Southwest is in operation each year, it really takes over the city, that I think in a way that might only be possible if the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup here in Toronto. You'd see the same kind of impact.
It might be another 20, 30 years.
Well, we're not holding our breath yet for that. We won't plan the parade just yet. But in Austin, the impact on the local hospitality industry is so much that you can't even book a hotel room unless you've got a South by Southwest ticket, a badge. Otherwise, you're not allowed. They book out all the hotel rooms, and you're not going to get a hotel room in that city. In Toronto, for whether you're talking about North by Northeast or CMW or Turf or Field Trip or Riot Fest or Luminato or the Jazz Festival or any of the amazing events that we have here, I think you'll find that the impact on the entire hospitality industry is great, but it doesn't dominate at any given time the way that South by Southwest does in Austin, sheerly because of the scale of the size of the event versus the size of the city that it's coming into.
And also the city of Austin has entered into an alliance with Toronto, which you created your position here that you've now filled with the City Hall. One question we have to ask is when it comes to the local venues and the musical acts from all over Canada that come here to Toronto, with the new position you have, what kind of platform are you can provide for the local venues and the musical acts we have to promote them not only throughout Canada but using the vehicle of the Austin, how huge they are in the world scene, to show that Toronto has a lot of amazing stuff going on.
Sure, yeah, Toronto certainly does have a lot of amazing stuff going on. I'm glad you raised the idea of the alliance. I wanted to take a second to talk about that. It's pretty exciting what the city's done here. Not only have they created my position and hired somebody from the industry to come into City Hall and work now within City Hall, and they've done the same thing in the film sector as well with the film sector development officer. So they clearly have a commitment to the cultural industries. That was created as a result of reports coming through in 2013 to council. And council also acted on those reports by creating the alliance with Austin in October of 2013. It's the first and only Music Cities Alliance in the world between Toronto and Austin. And we also created, I'm sure you've heard of the Toronto Music Advisory Council, which is a council made up of 32 members drawn from all sectors of the industry, which meets regularly itself, and there are Toronto City councillors who are part of that body as well, city staff like myself, and together, the council acts as an advisory board for the city and also as a kind of a liaison between the city and the industry itself. And the city helps support the recommendations of the advisory council, whether they impact live music or recorded music or promoters or management companies or industry associations, all of which ultimately do serve the artist. You also mentioned the idea that the Alliance could help Toronto artists and Toronto venues with the connections that come through Austin. I think that's very, very true. The Alliance is set up to act as a kind of a pipeline between Toronto and Austin. The cities signed these documents and created the framework.
So finally we could break through. Many artists have told me, we're talking about Socrates, Carl Wolf, the founder of the Canadian Urban Music Conference at Bryansburg. They're talking about that glass ceiling. Is this an alliance that we can finally break through that glass ceiling?
We're hoping that it will, yeah. We're hoping that right away it's going to result in artists being able to travel between Toronto and Austin and get booked in the other cities to a greater degree than they have already. We're hoping that you'll see dialogue happening between festivals in Austin and festivals in Toronto, venues in Austin, venues in Toronto, industry in Austin, industry in Toronto, again, all of which is set up to create more performance, recording, other kinds of business-to-business opportunities for musicians and people operating in the music sphere.
You've been in Toronto now for 25 years. You came here in 1989, originally from British Columbia. I'm a BC boy myself. Yeah. Go BC Lions. But since you've come here and now with the Alliance and everything, what kind of changes have you seen in the music industry? Not even Toronto, but we're talking all of Canada.
Right. You're right. I came here 25 years ago in 1989. I came here when I was a full-time gigging performing musician. And I came here because I used to sit back in Vancouver, which is a great city for music, obviously. But at that time, it didn't have as many venues for live performance of original stuff as I would have liked, and I know a lot of other people felt the same way. And I used to pick up Now magazine, and I would look at the listings and think, geez, just in downtown Toronto alone, we've got a dozen, 15 venues where artists can play their own music as opposed to cover stuff, right? And I thought about New York, I thought about LA, and I ended up moving out here with a couple of people in my band. And it was immediately productive. We got gigs, at the old Diamond, just now the Phoenix. We used to play Lee's Palace. We used to play the Horseshoe. We used to play a couple of venues in Kensington Market that are no longer around. Say What in more of a folk arrangement, to Free Thames Cafe. So a lot of these places that are still here. You're asking about the changes. Well, I think if anything, the scene that drew me here in '89 is better than it was then. When I tell people with my old North by Northeast hat on that North by Northeast or Canadian Music Week would book bands into maybe 30, 40, 50 venues, all of which have live music already anyway. People in other cities are amazed to hear this, that we've got that kind of concentration of live music venues just in the downtown core. These are venues that already have a PA system and a decent lighting system and a decent soundboard and guys coming in regularly to mix audio for the venue. So, I mean, it's better than it was, I think. I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in music. Clearly, I mean, there's some very big structural changes with the fact that in '89 people were still selling records, you know. People were still buying, I guess we'd moved over to CDs by then, but you know, there was an opportunity for artists to make a lot of money selling an object, selling a product, and obviously that's changed. The whole structure of the industry has changed in the sense that now the money's more in live performance, in touring, in selling merch, and in other kinds of deals that people can make with their music, whether they be with film and television producers, with game developers, with other kinds of opportunities to engage musicians. And so that's more of a larger structural change, goes far beyond Toronto or Canada. Overall, though, I think I was saying to you when you came in the office today that to me it seems that there are more, especially inspiring to see young people out there with ideas and energy and motivation to create something. You know, it's a lively, vibrant, energetic time, and nowhere more so than here in Toronto.
You've also written a couple books too.
I have, yeah. It seems like another lifetime. And a couple of them, well, all three of them actually had music as a pretty central focus. Two of the novels, there were two novels, and both of them featured characters who were musicians. And then I wrote a third book. It was a nonfiction book about classic rock acts for a teenage audience. You know, people who are, you know, obviously missed Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles by 50 years or so, but are still curious about who they were and why they were culturally important. I mean, a good example is I remember writing the chapter about Creedence Clearwater Revival and tying it closely to the Vietnam War, because I think it's some of John Fogerty's songs are easier to understand. Songs like Who'll Stop the Rain and Fortunate Son, if you understand what was going on politically and culturally at the time.
Yeah, it's even what's going on right now. I mean, I think we could probably look back at the Vietnam era and relate it to what's happening right now in regards to certain things that we're involved with on a world basis. I would love to see, you know, being a veteran, I'd love to see the troops come home.
Yeah.
Defend our nation is what I basically say. But at the same time, with the position you have here, you're in the exact same office that someone's involved with film. So I can see by walking in this room today the opportunities for, you know, musical acts, not even Toronto and all across Canada. Now there's this platform where you yourself can actually benefit by connecting up to the film industry. Is there an email or a website that people can go to?
Well, let me backtrack for a second to something that you mentioned. I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to talk about it as an important part of my position here, and that is that I'm part of what's called an entertainment industries team, which includes, we're gesturing over here to the empty chair where my film counterpart, Michelle, sits. So there's film sector development officers part of this team as well, as is Toronto has its own in-house tourist visitor services team. So they're working very closely with us. And there's one more component as well, which is the event support people. And they're the people who you engage with if you're a large event of any kind, but particularly useful to us are the cultural events, who are looking to do things like close a street or put a band into a park or create opportunities that are a little larger, a little bit unusual in the city's calendar. So we all work together as a team, and it's a great way to set things up because it does right away create connections and synergies and opportunities for overlap and approaching the city and approaching the various industries as a group. Makes a lot of sense, and we've already seen internally here some benefits from that.
Well, thank you very much for your time there, Mike.
Thanks,
You're
Reg.
doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in 2015, 2016, and the years to come.
Really appreciate your interest in coming in to talk to me, and good luck with your projects as well.
Thank you.